the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Andre, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to hear about all these things you got to share. I'd love for you to share with the audience. You have a journey. And, you know, as I've read your biography and so forth, I know it's a fascinating journey. And I'd love for you to share with the audience that journey and what brought you to this point of what you're doing, particularly with your project Equinox.
Ooh, okay. How far back do you want me to go? Because it starts at 5 years old. It's a little bit far.
I'll go a little sooner than that. But
Yeah. So in a nutshell, when I was 5 years old, I realized I was born in the wrong family. And so what happened is it was kind of baffling and scary. And I became an observer of the world and people because I was trying to understand how that's possible. So I was the kid who's always watching everyone. With that, I became fascinated with the human condition, watching people. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is this person cool? Why is this person like this? How come this and how come that? And how do people become who they, you know, because again, trying to understand me, but like, it was amazing. So with that, I became super attuned with people's energy. It just comes with a lifetime of observing. You kind of tune to people. I could actually just tune into people, which is really, really, really helpful for my work. And so again, for me, it was trying to understand for me and then decode human beings. It was my thing. I was 23 years old when I started taking personal development workshop for the same reason. So I did like personal development, business, money, you know, get your life together, let go your past, like all that stuff, constantly trying to get ahead of myself because I really felt like I didn't know really why I was here. Really, ultimately, didn't know why I was here. So it was an interesting challenge. But that kind of mindset, I've always been very, very curious, and the human condition was my pull. So it just constantly put me into that track. 2006, I had like a couple of careers. In 2006, in phase 2 of my life, I call it, because I was a professional dancer, and then I opened a business in Los Angeles. Midway through this, I was still doing personal development. I'm in San Jose, California, on a business workshop because I was trying to get my business right, high, like raise the ceiling. I meet this couple on the flight back to Los Angeles. We're sitting on the same row, and I thought life was random to that moment. But it was a third pivotal moment in my life. That moment, I'm sitting on the plane with these two, and the lady says to me, "What are you doing next weekend?" And I go, "Next weekend, I'm free." "Why?" She goes, "You want to come to a workshop? It's on me." And I go, "Yes, of course." I agree before I knew what it was because I'm going to learn something and my brain's like this, right? Then those things can be costly. So then I go, "So what's the workshop about?" She goes, "Oh, it's called Understanding Women." So when I tell the story, my friends like, "Really, there's such a thing as there's no such thing." My reaction wasn't that. My reaction was more like, because I have an artistic personality and whatever. I look the way I look, and I've never had problems with the ladies, right? Like I always attracted sweet women is what I mean. I attracted sweet women. I didn't do the crazy stuff my friends did. So this is one of the area that I was the most confident in life. And she's like, "Understanding women in a workshop this weekend." Oh, like I remember thinking like, okay, whatever. But I already said I was going to go. So I went. I thought it was going to be cute. And I remember that Saturday morning, I did not want to get in the car to drive to the airport because it was one of the airport hotels. But hey, I said I was going to go and thought it was going to be cute. I walked in there, 400 people. Oh, interesting. 300 women, 100 men. What? But you could tell there was something in the air. That's all I could tell you. Like I realized this. Like I was glad to be there. Like whatever, something is going on. And so we're surrounded, men are peppered all over the audience, obviously, but we're surrounded by women on purpose. I realized that. I was told this after the fact because what they taught us about women was insane, was mind-boggling. I slipped off of my chair at least 7 times throughout the workshop, like just came off my chair to the ground, just in disbelief. And the guy who's seemingly thought knew women, who had an affinity for women and whatever, right? I realized at the end of this workshop, my brain exploded. I realized I knew nothing, like zero, about women. At the time, I was so married with 2 little kids, and I realized what scared me is I know nothing about my wife. And I realized some of the ways they operate, some of the stuff that when I slipped off my chair, is I realizing like, oh my, and it would stop the workshop after one of those big moments. And the workshop leader would say, just so you don't think it's me, the crazy lady out front, let's take 5 minutes, check the women next to you. Right. And I spent like, there was a 19-year-old on my right. And we were going like, what? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's crazy. Well, sometimes we think we're crazy. That's why that would make me nuts. Well, sometimes we're a little bit nuts. And like kind of confirm what I just learned. That was unthinkable. It was unthinkable. Like you don't understand the way they process things, the way they hear different than we do, which sounds insane, but they hear different than we do. They're attached obviously to different things. What motivates it, they take everything personally, not because they're crazy. There's a good reason, but like to a level that anyway, so I came home kind of devastated or scared, actually, was the right word, because I thought, if I know nothing about my wife, what am I doing to her not knowing? That could be a liability, right? Because all my brothers and sisters are divorced 2, 3, 4 times, like all of them. I have my family, I have my babies, I have my wife. We're not looking for this information. We're doing fine, but I now realize I don't really know like what's going on with her, like to the point that I realized over the weekend. So that was to me, again, my curious brain went into, I'm not going to be a statistic because I didn't know. So I went crazy. I jumped in that company's curriculum. I did all their workshops. When I finished the workshop, I think there was like 9 or 10, maybe 11 different workshops about relationship dynamics, men and women. Um, After you've paid for the workshops, you can actually go back and assist them, be in the room and assist for free, just right. So every weekend I was in the workshop, kind of wanted to hear it again, hear it differently with different questions. As the material is so tantalizing and like detailed, you know what I mean? And that's how it started. Like, so, I was on track to become one of their workshop leaders because I'm a teacher. And so that didn't work out with that company, but that's when the launch was happening. Like, this is why I realized like I had a passion for this and I needed to discover it again, originally just from me and my wife. But very soon it was like I was teaching my friends, I was teaching my customers at the shop. Like it became this machine. It kind of took me over. And so I studied with 4 of the masters: John Gray, Mars and Venus after that, and Dr. Pat Allen in Los Angeles, family child marriage therapist for 48 years, 26 years at a time. I spent 3.5 years in a small room with her and 3 other people. Like she taught us everything that she's learned. So master in relationships over there. Alison Armstrong was the first lady anthropology. Dr. John Gray, the past 15 years, his work is all about the chemistry of our bodies that affects our brains and our behavior that is completely different. So I kept studying, and like 5 masters later, with my own work, I have this body of work that I without arrogance, I think is untouchable on some level, untouchable. So I love to decode relationships dynamic, and I help men and women attain and sustain a healthy relationship by understanding all the differences that we don't understand, because that's what really gets in the way. So,
Okay. Wow.
So I told you, it's a big one.
That's great. And it's fascinating that, as you're talking about it, that the genders do not understand each other. And it's interesting, as I've gone into behavioral type of information that I've done before, I've noticed that, for instance, and it's not always accurate, but there's a large percentage. Most women tend to be right-brained. They're much more spiritual. They're much more loving, that type of thing. Men tend to be left-brained, where blah, 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 blah. And that's how that goes.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
It's a fact. And if you don't understand that, that gets to be a real challenge. But I'd love for you to share with the audience and of course, hopefully we've got some men listening here, because you're going to talk about the women, and maybe you'll talk a little bit about the men as the women are listening. Nice. So let's start with the women. What are some of the unique qualities and aspects to women's personalities that we need to understand if we want to develop good relationships, and not only in marriage, but in business and everywhere else. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I'm going to try to get you there quickly. It goes back to anthropology and our ancestors and being men and women and having, get hunter gatherers and having to come together in uh, different styles to survive. It was all about survival, right? Anthropology is all about survival. Every instinct that we have is made to survive. Hunters hunt, gatherers gathered, but one works with the other perfectly to be able to, procreate and continue the species and survive. So with that, let's say on your nervous system, on your DNA as a baseline hunter gatherer, there are two completely different machines made to come together and work together, but they're completely different. And so one of the things with the ladies that men don't understand is being logical in our heads, like you said, right? We plan things, we function through our logic first. We have feelings, we have deep feelings, but we don't drive our lives through our feelings. We drive our lives through our logic. Again, that's the only way to survive, right? It's been going on for millennia. The ladies drive their lives, like you said, drive their lives through their feelings, not their logic, their feelings. So what happens is they're aware of everything that comes at them. That's part of the reason. Everything they see, everything they hear, smell, taste, touch, whatever comes at them during a day's course makes them feel good and bad, like back and forth. You know what I mean? So like their mood will change depending on what's happening. She could have a really good day, feel totally happy. And her boss says, you really messed up on that document. You need to go back and finish it and do it again. It was, oh, now she's feeling mad. She's mad, or she's, like, um, upset that she displeased, and she has to go back and redo it. So all of a sudden, like, now she's in a bad mood, right? And then it's like, so they kind of do this through the day. It's normal for women, right? But men don't operate that way. So if they approach us with feelings constantly that we don't understand, because that's not how we do, and we approach them with logic, disconnect. We miss the boat, right? And we'll say stuff like, why do you take that personally? I'm just trying to help you, and you're too sensitive. I can't tell you anything. Yes, that's a woman on the other side, you know. They think we're cold and shallow and disconnected and selfish because we're always in our heads. We're not present like they constantly are. Right? They need the connection to feel safe and connected. You know what I mean? We don't need that. I need you to like kind of leave me alone and be quiet most of the time. Like we need different things, but we are still blind to this. It's incredible how what each needs is so Mars and Venus. And in our culture now that we teach equality and 50-50 and all these things, equal rights, equal pay, of course, but now it's come to a belief that men and women should be the same. So that men have to be sweet and sensitive and talkative and vulnerable to be good men. No, that's your girlfriend. It's never going to happen. But that's the pull, right? The pulse in the culture. And then with masculinized women, go girl, boss babe, don't need no man, give yourself some business and money because you can't trust them. They're toxic, right? So masculinize the women, feminize the men. And it's a shit show. That's what I see every single day. Like we're going against nature in a way that's destructive. Now there's a calibration in that somewhere, but what we're doing doesn't work.
Well, and as you're talking about that, obviously it comes down to communication because, as you're saying, so often we say something to someone and they're going to take it in a different way based on what their personality and behavioral traits are.
Yep.
And I think one thing that's important that I've come to understand is I've done numerous personality behavioral analyses.
Yep.
Is there are exceptions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There are exceptions. So I want the audience to understand that we're kind of generalizing, but we recognize that there are exceptions here because there are women that tend to be left brain, and there are men that tend to be right brain. And if we don't understand that, I experienced that as a dad. I had a son that was left brain, and I get that because I'm left brain. And all of a sudden, over the time, I realized that I had a son that I was not communicating well with because he was right brain.
Right brain.
Now, ultimately, we were able to figure that out, and now we have a great relationship. But I think it's really important that we understand how is it that someone wants to be communicated to, And as you've done those studies and you talk about really wanting to equip people with the tools to have excellent communication,
Yep.
what are those tools, and how does an individual, whether they're a man or a woman, how do they learn to communicate in a way that's effective, respectful, and honoring
Oh,
the
oh, I feel.
personality and who that person is that they're communicating with? What
Uh,
are some of the tools?
Great question. So, like and again, thank you for mentioning this because there's no men are all, women are all. There's no such thing, right? There's a norm, and I call it there's an 80-20 rule where 80% are all the same, and there's 20% are not. I call them hybrids. I call them different. I call them unique, right? We're all unique, but there's a definite, like in everything in life, there's an 80-20 rule. There's a norm and the people outside the norm. So operating weight, like you said, operating from your left brain as opposed to your right brain sometimes switches genders. So that's how you have to discover that. You have to know who you're dealing with, right? So men who are right brain driven typically are left-handed. Interesting. Their brain is wired like the feminine. I'm not calling him gay or feminine. I'm saying they actually live through that side of their brains, which is more sensitive, more talkative, more need to connect, right? It's a more feminine approach. Now they're just wired that way. Left-handed men operate from their right brain. Interesting. About 10% of men are that. And that explains left-handed men. If you dealt with them, they're amazing and they're weird on something, right? Because they function like men, but they don't. But they do, but they don't. You know what I mean? Depending of what's, again, a little bit what's happening in the environment. So it's interesting. So you have to know your audience. So what the people the mistake that I see people make, again, it's not knowing right brain, left brain, masculine and feminine. We both have masculine and feminine within us. But as a male, typically the left brain drives more, right? 80-20 again, right? The 20% would be to, being right brain is like experiencing life, being in the moment, watching TV in a right brain, right? Daddy energy tends to be not a warrior energy, but more of a kind, loving energy, right? That would be right. So we both have both, and women as well. So women ideally are better off in their feminine, but there's a 20-25% of be able to function in the world, be productive. So we have to find a balance within ourselves first, and some people don't have it. Some people are inverted. Interesting. You have to discover that if you're going to be in a relationship with that person, right? So, and again, understanding that understanding who you're dealing with. Most people think that communication is about the words that you use. That's not it. Communication is about the results that you get, right? And if you're not getting the results and you think he's misbehaving or you think she's misbehaving or taking it too seriously and it's not that big a deal, you're not communicating. You're assuming your communication is working on them. And like I said, the yin yang of this is, I want to say this, it sounds ridiculous, but when I when we speak to women, men, they're not hearing what we're saying. And when they're talking to us, we're not hearing what they're saying because we speak and listen completely differently. It sounds ridiculous because, we look at each other, you understand the words that come out of my mouth, right? We speak English, but men to women, we miss the boat because we speak directly and they don't. So when we speak directly, they often, check this out for yourself, it's hysterical. You'll say something directly, right? And she's not sure. The women will go, I wonder what he's trying to tell me. I say this, and they go, what's he trying to tell me? Right? So that's why you could offer, the client asked me this, he goes, why is it that when I offer a woman a piece of gum, she gets offended? Because her brain goes, do I have bad breath? What's he trying to tell me, right? Like, because that's how they speak to each other. We don't know this, right? And vice versa. So when they speak to us, they don't want to be direct because they think it's kind of impolite. So they go in hints and innuendos, which goes right over our heads because we're direct speakers. So stuff like hints, tone of voice, innuendos, right? Like it's the way they communicate, and woman to woman, they know exactly what they're saying. But we miss the communication. I'll give you an example. Silly stuff, but it's a basic one. My wife, this was years ago, sitting on the couch, girlfriend's over, they're about to leave, it's late afternoon, and the girl's about to leave, and it was still early, so I thought, I asked her in front of the girls, I go, babe, you want to go to the movies when the girls leave? It's still early, right? I ask her a simple question. Babe, do you want to go to the movies? Okay, here's the answer, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. And I go make some plans. And the girls are like, what the hell is wrong with this dude? Is he stupid? Because that, yeah. It's a giant no. They all heard it. But what I heard was the word, right? Like what you and I
Right.
hear is the word. They're listening for tones. And that's why we've been saying stuff like, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it. It changes the meaning of everything. What they're saying with the hints of the tones and windows, they understand. We don't. So we constantly are like missing the boat and we think the other one's crazy. And I can't believe he didn't hear. Like the girls could not believe that I didn't get that. But I'm waiting. I just asked a question. I got a yes. I don't know. I have no ear for tones. And my wife will sometimes say that to me, like, it's don't talk to me that way. I go, but I'm upset. What do you say? Like, I'm upset. So you're gonna hear that in my voice, right? Like, right. But to her it's offensive because it's kind of scary. I get it. But like their tone, they're just so this is a huge one that everybody's blind to. Everybody's blind to. And so you have to learn it. And so I don't know who teaches this outside of me. I'm sure somebody else teaches it, but it's a delicate thing that is essential to learn so you don't get yourself in trouble thinking, you know, he knows he heard you and is misbehaving. No, no, men don't act that way. Normal males don't act that way, right? And same the other way around. Like she's not crazy. She's trying to figure out what you're trying to say as opposed to hearing the words you're saying. It's
Well,
wild.
and
It's
as
wild.
you talk about that, and as you've studied with these different gurus, I'm sure you've come across, and I don't remember the percentages, but when you start, and you mentioned this, when you start talking about communication and
Mhm.
those elements of communication, you have the words, which
Right.
are really a small percentage of
Yeah.
that communication.
7%. 7%.
7%. You have the tonality, as
Mhm.
you say, which becomes much larger.
Yep.
And then you also have the body language,
Yep. Yep.
which is also there.
Right.
And I think that people don't really recognize, as you say, particularly, as men, if we happen to be left brain, it's like, okay, the words, boom, 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 boom.
That's it.
And we don't recognize that the body language, the tonality, those type of things are really what other people are particularly picking up. So here's the question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How do we learn to communicate in a way that we take into account not only just the words, because even words can be
Oh,
words can be a
yes.
challenge too,
Yes.
particularly if we
Yes.
say
Yes.
something that's going to trigger something in someone. So how do we learn what the other person needs as far as communication, and how do we learn to utilize the tonality, the body language, and the words in a way that create an effective communication and message? And how do we make sure that the other individual understands what we're saying?
Right. So good question. Great question. Complicated answer. Long answer. I'm going to try to go short, but because there's layers in that. But
Right.
in the end is what I just said earlier. Like they speak and listen differently. We both speak and listen differently. So just knowing that all of a sudden, right, kind of puts your ear on guard. Like, wait. So for my wife, you know, she'll get this. So if she asks my opinion, right, I'll give her my opinion. But I know that sometimes she asks my opinion, I give my opinion, and she gets mad at me. I go, well, why did you get mad at me? You ask my opinion, give my opinion. I'm a man, right? I'll tell you what I think. You tell me like, well, should I do this or this? And you think, you think she's a jerk for having done that. And I'm like, well, no, actually, she did. She has the right to do this, and it's kind of her job. And she's mad at me. So, because I discovered again, communication. This is another layer. Is that when my wife asks for my opinion, she doesn't want my opinion necessarily. She just wants me to agree with her.
And I'm going
Are
to
you with
interrupt
me?
you there. I'm
Yeah.
laughing at that because I learned with my kids. I finally learned after years and years that I had to say to them, all right, do you want me to listen or do you want my opinion?
Ta-da.
And most of the time they're saying, Dad, I just want you to listen.
Yep.
And every once in a while, I say, no, I really appreciate your opinion. And so I learned that particular technique that I had to do because I was
Right.
just challenged in
But
that
so that's what I'm.
communication with my kids.
Yes, yes, because the same thing, right? The way
Yeah.
whatever their motive is for the questions or the ask. But I mean, when you're talking about effective communication, exactly like this, like which what is you asking me here? What is it? Sorry, my phone is ringing. What is it you're asking me here? Do you know what I mean? So before I answer the question and give them what I think they want, because we have a different brain, right? So my wife now, when she asks my opinion, I go, okay, hold on. So do you want me to agree with you, or do you want me to give my opinion? Because my opinion, you might not, just want me to agree with you, which is usually what she wants. Usually
Yeah.
that's what she wants, right? So she's like, just agree with me. I'm like, well, then you're right. She's an ass. She should never have done that. She should get fired. I can't believe they still hire that girl, right? I just agree with her. Just completely go into what she wants me to say. You know what I mean? And she's like, yeah, thanks. Like, okay, I get it. So, like you said, asking the question often because we miss the boat if we think like another one that is feminine. Again, feminine men will do the same thing. Is my wife my wife will ask me a question that isn't a question, it's a statement that I'm supposed to decode because it's obvious to her that's, that's what she's doing. So I'll give you an example, hysterical. Because you know, one Sunday evening, she says to me, babe, do you want to go out for dinner? That's a simple question. Babe, do you want to go out for dinner? What did I hear? I heard, babe, do you want to go out for dinner? It's a question. She's asking me a question. Wants to know if I want to go out for dinner. So I go, you know what? No, like you know, I just want to stay home and kind of I get to finish some work and no, no. And I see her get like, and I'm noticing that she's getting mad at me. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. You asked me a question and now I'm the bad guy, right? So again, have to go fish it out. Now we discover these things very well, but I can tell. So communication, right? Something happened there. So I could let her be mad, or I could rescue her out of this and go find out. So I let her brew for a little bit because I don't want to get an explosion, but I'm not sure why she's mad. She asked me a question, she's mad. So a little while later, I'm like, "Are you okay?" I'm fine. I go, "No, something's going on. What's going on?" I'm okay. No, no. So I won't let her go, right? Because I'm gonna get mad if she's gonna keep doing that, right? So no, that's not fair. Something is going on. Tell me. She goes, well, I didn't want to make dinner, so that's why I wanted you to take me out for dinner. I'm like, why didn't you say that, babe? Why didn't you say that? If you said to me, babe, it's Sunday night, I don't feel like cooking, what do you think about going out for dinner? I would have gone, great, get in the car, right? Because if she doesn't want to cook, I don't want to make her cook, right? Like, but I don't know. What she did ask me a question. So she constantly, and the girls around me, this is the way that women communicate, they make a statement and a question, and you're supposed to get the meaning. Do you want to go for dinner means take me out for dinner, right? Well, last week she asked me, she goes, you want me to go pick Renee up, my daughter? Right? Do you want me to go? She asked me, do you want me to go pick Renee up? I go, oh, hold on. It's a trap. Okay. I said, do you want me to go? Do you want me to go get Renee? And she's like, that was too direct for her to say. That was too direct for her to say. That's always the meaning, right? It would be displeasing or orderly or like ordering me around or like, no, I just ask me, right? So, but she's asking me like, and I go, oh, do you want me to go get Renee? And she's all, well, I feel this is my job. Do you want me to go get Renee? Well, you work so hard that you just got home. Do you want me to go get Renee? Answer the question. She's like, oh, yeah. I go, I'll go get Renee. Babe, it's easy. Just tell me, don't throw questions at me that I don't understand. I will hear a question, but that's not but anyway, but she does it. It's kind of an automatic thing for ladies. So again, understanding that the more you understand it, and the more you catch it and kind of, you know, decode it, right? The more you do this, the more it becomes obvious, the more that there's a flow. And like I said, we still have miscommunications all the time. I'm an educator of effective communication strategies, for God's sake, and we still miscommunicate because of our instinct that we were wired, right? But now the difference is when there's we trip on something, right? We always cool off, take your corners, go for a walk the dog, for her, take a bath, whatever, just cool off. Because we did, when you argue or if when you're heated, things go awry and then you end up saying things that you can't take back, right? So never fight out loud. This discourse is something, take our corners, come back neutral, right? And you go, well, what happened there? So, and she'll say something often like, well, when you did that, this made me feel like this. I didn't like it. And that's what happened. Or like, when you did that, when you said this, it made me feel like this. And, I thought it was like crass or like not very loving. Is that what you meant? Right? Like we actually have a communication about the derailment because they'll happen, but how do you kind of fix it is really the magic. Understanding that no one's behaving. So she's not screaming at me and telling me I'm a jerk. We could calmly say, how did we get here? What happened to you on your side? Because I don't know what's happened. And vice, you know what I mean? And so that's how we kind of come together. And now that's how you also become safe to bring things up to.
Well, and it's interesting, and I know that your focus is on relationships, and I think that that is so essential, particularly those marriage relationships, those significant others, that we do that. I kind of smile as you were talking about that because, as you say, you said this and it made me feel this way,
Yep.
and I kind of go an extra mile on that, which can get you in real trouble unless you're both really working together on this. Is, honey, what emotion came up for you when I said that caused you to feel that way?
Right.
And all of a sudden, then you get into the fact that, you know what, when you said that to me, this emotion came up in me and I'm taking responsibility for this emotion. I got to figure out why I'm getting triggered by the words that you're saying. And all of a sudden, what I found is when you have two people, and it sounds like you're in that situation, where you have two people who are willing to really listen, communicate, and figure things out, all of a sudden, that relationship just is so enhanced. And where you get into trouble is when one person isn't willing to do that, or both people are not willing to do that. And then all it becomes is a fight and ultimately a separation or a divorce.
Yeah, because he's a jerk and she's crazy, right? That's usually, but okay, so there's a lot of data on this, right? The couples, all orientation, by the way, it's not just men and women, it's all the couples who succeed long-term relationships, right? One thing they have in common, right? There's a yin yang, first of all. There's a one that's more masculine and one's more feminine, so they complement each other naturally. That's some people just have it naturally. That they just one wants to lead more, one wants to support the lead. The one does not want to lead. You know what I mean? So personality wise, yin yang, extroverted, introverted, always in duality. It's beautiful. It's nature. But the people who really like truly have quality of lives in relationship is they know how to do conflict resolution. And it's actually in the conflict resolution that they get closer and bond even tighter. Because if I have your back and you have my back, which means we each want each other's best, right? So I want to understand what's going on with you and why you're upset and how I got you there, if I got you that, right? And vice versa. So when the couple has each other's back, the communication is a lot more steady, right? They could be calmer. They understand and they come back and they can talk about it. And what you're talking about is in my world is triggers. We all have triggers that are completely blind to the other person because their life experience is not ours, right? So for me, feeling abandoned by my mother when I was a kid, if my wife, goes to the grocery store and buys everything for her and the kids, and that's happened when the kids were little, she'll buy everything that the kids need and her, and the food that I need, she completely forgot about me visually, right? Like that's what it appears to be because I'm sensitive to that. Right. And then I go into I feel unloved, I'm triggered, I'm angry. Like, how could she? I do all the work around here. I'm the one bringing the money, and she can't go to the store and buy the food that I need because I'm an athlete, so I eat very specific foods, right? That I have to have. So, so we now know that's one of my triggers. Like, don't act like I don't exist because this person will go away and you'll have another monster in front of you and you wonder who you married, right? So we have to also discover each other's triggers. abandonment issues, neglect issues, abuse issue, like violence issues, like that kind of stuff. Like you need to know what somebody is easily triggered by, because again, if you can share these things as opposed to pretend that we all do this, right? In the beginning of a relationship, we take all the flaws and we hide them, thinking, they're gonna like you, but it's not real. Like the person has to come out and so that whole hiding your flaws is actually it's counterproductive. You really want to present them forward. So when they flick that nerve and you get upset, or she gets upset, and you go, wait, did I just do that thing? Right? Like, oh, that's a yes. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. So, okay. So, anything I could do to make you feel better, right? You could actually kind of unravel it. So for women, it's often them not feeling cherished and unloved, right? That hurts their feelings. For us, is being disrespected. And
Oh,
another blind spot is we don't know why they get their feelings hurt, because it doesn't know our feelings. They don't know why we feel disrespected, because the things that disrespect us doesn't disrespect them. So another layer into this
yes. And you know
tension.
what, as you talk about this, and obviously we're focusing on adult men and women, but let's think about the children,
Mm.
and parenting.
Oh
And
my goodness.
and my goodness, what do we do as we talk about those emotional overlays that children develop out to the point where now they're getting triggered, and it's life. I mean, we all do the best we can,
Yeah.
but how important is it, as what you're talking about, these principles, is it to use those principles as you are rearing your children, as you are communicating with your children?
Well, as well, of course, as well, because the way I speak to my son is different than the way I speak to my daughter, because I have a boy and a girl. Right? I can be direct with him. I can be criticizing, and he takes that as love. And if I criticize my boy, and I say he needs to get his life together or whatever, right? Like criticism, man on man, is an act of love. Because if I didn't care for you, I wouldn't say anything. So the fact that I'm saying something and I'm upset and I'm actually angry because you need to wake the hell up, right? That's love, man on man. We all know this. Criticism, from man to woman, is the kiss of death. It's like it destroys women. You know what I mean? So the way I talk to my boys, if the way I talk to my girl, right? The way I help him sort of step into his manhood. That's not the way I raise my daughter, right? I want to push my boy into doing brave things that he's afraid of. I don't want to push my daughter into doing things to make her more brave, right? That's how you damage them, right? So there's a whole other dynamic right there. But understand, again, little girls live through their feelings, little boys live through their heads, right? So if you want to communicate, man on man, it's easy. Man on girl, okay, it's
It's not
challenging.
so easy. So you've created this project Equinox. Can you
Yes,
share
sir.
with the audience what is that,
Well,
and
yeah.
what
Go
do
ahead.
people experience if they get involved with that?
So Project Equinox basically is the programs that I offer to help men and women understand these differences. I have programs of 4 to 5 months in chunks that basically, if you work on me one on one, there's 5 different ways to work with me. But the concept is really to teach all this stuff, but not only to teach it, because we know that information does not create transformation, right? Listen to a podcast, read a book. Like, that's interesting. It doesn't change your life. Why? Because you have to take action. You have to get it under your skin. It has to be a visceral experience. The first time that a woman who has never felt safe with men in her life because of her daddy, right? Like the trauma, we talk about triggers and trauma. If a woman doesn't feel safe in the world, every man's an enemy on her nervous system to some degree, right? And so they're scared of men. They're super protective of men. They don't trust men, right? They can be vulnerable with men, which costs a whole lot of their lives, by the way, because that's no way to live. But when we decode and kind of release their trauma, right, and bring them in the place of curiosity as opposed to fear, and then I teach women about men. And in my world, there's 3 types of men. There's boys, there are guys, there are men. They all look the same, but very different temperaments. And the boys are the ones that you want to avoid, because the boys are the ones who like to take advantage of women. Those are the toxic ones. Those are the cheaters, the liars, right? Because men naturally are not those things. What I call the wounded masculine is those things. So there's a lot of that out there. I get it. But to know who to avoid as a woman who's been let's say, not loved right as a child, is afraid of men. When you again release the trauma and realize that you only have to spot the bad ones and know how to avoid them, because the rest of them are safe and they want to be heroes and they want to help. And natural instinct in men is to provide, protect, cherish, give support, guide everything, everyone, right? Protect women and children and anybody who needs protection. There's a man on the side of the road that's going to pull over if your car breaks down, not a woman, because for her that's danger and that she could fall into a trap, right? So, like, a man will stop to make sure, to see if he could help you. That's natural masculinity. And beside, always behind the first guy, there's the second guy who pulls up just in case that guy is at peace. Because we know they're out there, right? We know these guys are
Yeah.
out there. So, but so when a woman discover really the true nature of man, the hero in man, the providing, protecting all women at all time, you have to ask for help, and they go, yeah, sure, of course, you know, anything else? And you go, thank you, you're such a gentleman, and they puff up, right? You have the power as a woman to bring men into the masculine even more by asking for help. So when these women discover this, they go from being unsafe in the world to realize that they're surrounded by heroes. They're surrounded by protection, and so it's a different world, right? So that's the
Okay.
work.
So what you've really done, if I can just kind of summarize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yes, sir.
You have taken all of this knowledge that you have gained over the years with your workshops and your reading and with the different mentors you've worked with, and you've put it all into a package where people, rather than having to do the same thing over years, can actually go into your website and into the Project Equinox. And
Yes.
there you're sharing all the information. And as you say, sharing the information is one thing, but then you have some way in which you are actually helping them to integrate that into their lives.
Yep. Practice it, put it to use, go try this. My favorite thing is, again, because men and women are very different. And I tell them, which is, it's factual. Like I tell the men, I have the owner's manual for ladies. You just don't know how they work and they can't explain it. They're responding, right? And ladies, I have the owner's manual for the men. Same thing, men just respond to you. And so how do you get the best out of him instinctively, right? The provider protector. So that's really the gig. Like, understand the other side. And then part of it is literally, how many times did I hear this? I say, go, this week, you're going to go practice this, right? And they go, how's that going to help? I'm like, okay, hold on. So your way doesn't work, clearly, because that's why you're here. How about we try my way, right? And so they go, okay, whatever, right? Some in the beginning, because they don't, some of the stuff they can't really grasp, like, why, right? I go anyway, and they come back. They go, oh my god, I can't believe that worked. That was I can't believe that worked. Like, men did exactly what you said they're gonna do. I go, well, because that's what men do. I'm not a genius. I'm just telling you. And that I kind of discovered this new world, right? The same with the man. When the man understands, because we don't need connection to survive, and we don't need to feel safe to survive. We create our own safety, and connection is something we don't need, like the ladies, right? So
Right.
we're constantly scared of the ladies because of our own basic wiring. But when a man understands that for his wife, I had a client, hysterical. This was a couple of years back. He calls me. I didn't know him. He came referred, and he goes, I need your help. I go, okay. I goes up. He goes, my lovely wife of 10 years. She used to be so sweet. She's the love of my life. That's why I married her. She's amazing. I go, yeah. He goes, well, now I come home, right? I come home from work. She looks at me. She goes, oh, it's you. And goes in the kitchen. He goes, dude, she hates me. I don't know what happened. I go to work. I bring the money. I do my best. I don't understand. And I'm like, I want to call him name, like, you dumbass. I go, well, because as a man, he doesn't understand her
Right.
needs. I go, I promise you, I don't know your wife, but I promise you, if she's treated like this, she feels taken for granted, right? She feels like neglected. You don't talk to her. You give her the one word answer, right? You don't notice everything she does to support the household because you're too busy coming home, kicking off your shoes and turning on the TV. You don't appreciate all the stuff that's, like, you don't call it, you don't say it out loud, right? You take it all for granted. Like, you just sort of kind of, you're okay because it's all working, but she is not okay because she feels disconnected. And if she feels disconnected because you're not talking to her and you take it for granted, she gets resentful and she ultimately doesn't feel safe. So if you understand the feminine needs to be connected and safe, right? And just do that. And then so he did, he did, and kind of put in this again. She had no idea. Both parties don't have to know. As long as one knows how to bring instinctively the best out of the other person, it just works, right? So they respond. So it worked, and he's like, it took about a year because there's a program and there's a continued practicing.
Right.
So right, so it lands. It takes a year for transformation. That's not a long time. That's not a long time for a new life. But now he's like, dude, I got my wife back. Thanks so much. But he knows how to do all the small stuff to make you feel connected and safe. Something that is we're blind to. He knows now. And he goes, now when I come home, she's happy to see me. And sometimes she's at the door with a glass of wine. Thank you. Right. But again, it's understanding instinct. Really, it's all it is.
So how do people find that project, number one? And you had mentioned, as we were talking earlier, that you do have a gift for people.
Yes, I do. So my website is projectequinox.net. And again, everything's on there. I'm on all social media platform under either Project Equinox or my name, Andre Paradis. So depending on where you're going, but they're all on the website. You should be able to find all the YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So that's all on there. But yeah, so my gift for you listeners, and I think you'll appreciate that. We talked about this earlier before we started recording, that my God mission is to really spread this to the masses. What's out there in the world right now is not working. When we talk about, toxic masculinity and men are crap and you can't trust them and they're dangerous and cheaters, right? When you make all women fearful of men, well, how's this going to help, right? So, but this out there, that's the pulse. And then we push the women into go girl, boss baby, independent, because you can't trust these guys anyway. And they're all players. And that's destroying basically relationship. That's destroying families. That means that children are not raised in systems that are healthy, so they can actually build their own healthy relationships and their own family. So when family system fall apart, society and culture falls apart. That's what's happening out there.
So what's your gift? What's your gift?
My gift is, I notice there's two types of listeners on podcasts, because that's why I do podcasts, right? So some people are here for information. They're curious. They're starting to poke around, right? They like information. So if you're a listener, you'll find yourself, classify yourself or qualify yourself as. If you're an information seeker, I want to send you directly to my email. If you go to Andre Coaching, the number one at Gmail, ANDRE coaching, the word coaching, number one at gmail.com. And in the subject box, write Irresistible Book. I have this 30-page book called 5 Feminine Qualities High Value Men Find Absolutely Irresistible. This is the work that I've done with men, and then men talking about what they find is irresistible in women. Ladies, it'll knock your socks off. It's free. If you just email me, I'll send it to you. I sell it on my website. I'll send it to you directly. It's a workbook, so there's pages and there's notes for you to take in. It's fantastic. So, information seekers, Andre Coaching 1, Irresistible Book. Irresistible. The second type listeners I notice are people who are more like action takers. Like some of the stuff that we talked about, for some people, like it resonates a lot for people often because I'm teaching nature. So if something I said resonated and you're curious, you want to have a conversation with me, I will actually absolutely grant you an exploratory call. It's on me, Andre Coaching 1, in the subject box, just write talk now. You can also ask me questions. You request both. I don't care. Like, this is a gift. And what I'll do is I'll send you my calendar link. You'll find a space that's open. We'll have a one-on-one conversation like you and I are having right now. And in that, we'll discover really, I go right to childhood and finding the triggers that get us either too masculine, too feminine, right? The injuries that we carry that drives our life. And that's how we get stuck in a loop. So like that. And then we'll talk about if we know what happened, it's fixable. That's what I do, right? And so if you're not broken, because it's fixable, like what's the dream life? What do you want? Relationship, marriage, kids, long-term, whatever, right? And then we'll talk about that. So for some people, whether, like I said, there's 5 ways to get invested if you want. But some people, even if we don't work together, just that call is liberating.
Okay. So as we close, what would be that short message that you'd like to share with people?
Okay, really quickly, it's again, because of my work and when I see what's out there, I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, think for yourselves. What I mean by that is, there's a pulse out there that My assistant is 29 years old and she wants a traditional life. She wants 3 kids, but she can't say that out loud in Los Angeles because the women attack her. Girl, we need to talk. You're better than being some girl's, some man's, slave, and children will ruin you. Okay, so what I'm saying is she wants to be traditional, right? Be traditional. Think for yourselves. Be careful not to get caught in a tidal wave of boss babe, go girls, men are toxic. Just think for yourself, decode it, learn the stuff, and be careful what you listen to because the culture right now is making, this is why I'm so busy. Everything they teach in the culture is making relationships almost impossible.
Okay, very good. Andre, thanks so much.
Absolutely, my man. I appreciate
Very
you helping me.
informative. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. And folks, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And we look forward to having you join us again soon. Go to Project Equinix and find out a little bit because I guarantee you we all have challenges with that. So anyway, this is Dr. Doug saying namaste.